I'm going to tell you about how to enter a quotation in the SNA Masonry Management System. First of all, you click on the Quotation tab and enter Edit Quotation. We're going to enter a new quote, so click OK to clear for a new quote. It lands on the date, which defaults to today, and then onto your branch. Now if you're a multi-branch, you'll have a list of branches listed here. We only have one, so we're choosing SNA. Now you can choose the type of job. We have Monumental, Wholesale, Countertops, Fireplaces, Signs and Sundry. We're doing Monumental. You can then click if you want to have a cemetery required or not required, depending on the type of job. We're now going to enter the deceased name. John Doe. You can enter the date of death if you know it. You can find the date, click on it, and there it is. Now you can choose the fixing type. These can be predetermined by yourself. We have 3: normal, Christmas and birthday. If you choose, say, Christmas, then you know that the job needs to be done for Christmas. And it's got a little tick in the lockbox, so you know that you should try to stick to that date. You can also choose the number of weeks to fixing. You can set these up in the preferences, so if you normally have about 12 weeks, then you can set that as your default. Or you could change the date if needed. Now it comes down to click on Create a New Customer. We're going to type Mrs. Jane Doe. If you noticed, the initials automatically came up because it recognised it from the name Jane. Now the salutation is Mrs. Doe, but you could put the salutation for letters as Jane if required. And now we're going to enter her contact details. If you notice, as I'm typing on the left-hand side, the contact details are appearing on the middle as well, in the Bill To details. Now I'm going to enter the postcode, and if you notice, there's a little button that says Click to View on Google Maps. So if you wanted to see where she was, you could actually click on it and have a look. Now looking at the Bill To details, if the person paying the bill was a solicitor or another member of the family, you could edit the details and change those to what you require. There's also an account number at the bottom of the screen, and the purpose of this is the default account if you are going to export the information into Sage Accounting. Now it comes down to choosing the source, and these can be predetermined by yourself. This is how the customer heard of you. And then you can choose the area that the customer falls into. So again, you can see where you're getting your work from. Now we've jumped over to the telephone numbers. Lots of room for lots of numbers. First of all, we'll type the home phone number in, and then the mobile number. If you notice, there's little tick buttons at the right-hand side of the screen. Whichever one you click becomes a default number, the number that you're most likely to call them on. You can enter the customer's email address, and this address will be used for any email correspondence that you use in the future. There's a large notes box where you can enter any notes on the customer. The customer never gets to see this, but it's good for you to be able to remember somebody or to inform another member of staff if they're to deal with the lady a little bit later on. Excuse the spelling mistakes. You choose the customer type, and this one's a Monumental. So we're going to say OK to save the customer, and now we have a new quote number, which also has appeared at the top of the screen. You can change the source code again if you want to at this stage, and choose the category of business. These again can be predetermined by yourselves. We're choosing New Memorial. There's a search reference, and it's automatically defaulted to the deceased name's surname. This could be a pad number or a funeral reference number or anything that you would like to enter in there that is a way for you to find that quote in a future date. You can also enter some special instructions if required. We now moved over to the cemetery. You can search for the cemetery. We're choosing Ballygriffin, and if you notice, the cemetery falls into a fixing area. The reason for this is so that you can look at all jobs in a particular fixing area to make planning of fixing a lot easier. You can enter the plot number if you know it at this stage, and the grave number. You can enter the relationship of the deceased person to the inquirer. Again, it's just a little bit of continuity so that you can remember when you speak to them in future. We've now jumped down to the material supplier box, so you can choose your material, choose your supplier, and later on, if necessary, you can email the supplier to ask them for a quote on the job you're about to do. If you want to follow up the quote, you can enter a date that you wish to follow them up. You can type some follow-up notes, so if you've decided you're going to call the customer in a couple of weeks' time to see what they think of the quote, you can put it in the notes box here, and then either yourself or one of your colleagues is able to see that information. Now, any follow-ups that you've put in will flag up on the day that you're meant to follow them up on the menu screen. So it reminds you that today's the day you're meant to be giving them a call. If you lose the quote, you can actually enter an exit date and a reason why you've lost the quote, good for analysis purposes in the future to see where you may be losing jobs. You'll notice on this screen there are a series of tabs that relate to the job. In this case, we're clicking on the Job Details tab to enter the details relating to this job. We now have a simple screen which you can fill out the job details on. Click in the top row and start typing the details of the job. There's lots of room for many characters. So we're going to supply and fix a black granite memorial. To enter more information, we press the down arrow key to continue typing. You can make it as simple or as detailed as you like. This information can then carry through to your quotation letter if required. At any stage, you can press the Enter key and jump across to enter some figures against the job. So we're entering a figure into the net box. We then choose our VAT code. In this case, it's VAT code 1, and then our analysis code, so that we can analyse where our business is coming from. As you can see, the VAT and the gross have been calculated for us. You're able to insert lines in the text, so if you decide you want to space it more appropriately on the letter, you can do so. Or you can add some text and move it, insert it into a different line if needs be, especially if something comes to mind a little later on that you may have forgotten. You simply drag the line required and pop it into where you want it to go. Now on the right hand side you will see the costs of the job building up. So you can see now the total net and the total VAT. You can enter a deposit request. You can set this as a default in preferences, so if you always ask for 50%, it'll work it out for you. Or you can amend it to make it into a sensible figure if you're asking the customer for a round figure. Now, as you chose your cemetery earlier, you can also then select the fees from that cemetery that are applicable. If you pay commissions, you can also choose the person you're paying the commission to, and they'll be set up with the percentage commission you usually give them. And as you can see, it's worked out to figure. Now, each analysis line can be worked out separately, so you don't have to pay commission on every part of the job if necessary. You will see now the figures have built up slightly. Now we have an insurance button, so you can click on it and it will work out the insurance on that job from the insurance table. You can include the insurance in the totals, or you can offer as an extra later on your invoice. You can add layouts to the job. We're going to add one now. So we're going into our photos folder, we're finding a picture, and that's our layout. So we've attached it. Now if we want to look at it, just quickly save the quote. If you look, there it is underneath. For demonstration purposes, we've obviously not chosen the right one, but you can see how it works. Now our job is building up nicely. Now you've got the opportunity to save this job as an overlay. An overlay is basically a template. So if you have certain jobs that you sell regularly, you can save an overlay so that you can call it up again to save all that repetitive typing. So we're creating a new overlay called New 9. You can put some details on about it. I'm going to save it. So if we want to use that in future, we would just click on the Load an Overlay button, which we're doing now. And you can see all our overlays in there. There's lots of different ones, all test ones, so they may not make too much sense. And we're going to choose another one just to show you how it works. So there it is, a new job imported. And if you notice on the right hand side that the quote value is now changed, as has the commission. Now we're going to click on the inscription tab. There's a field on the left hand side for you to enter the existing inscription on a headstone if there is one, and you can enter any inscription notes, or you can go into the middle and just start typing the new inscription. When you get to the deceased name, you can simply press the F9 key and it'll copy from the first page. You can also import an inscription if it's been emailed to you. If you look, you can cut and paste it into there, click confirm, and it'll be imported for you. There's a spell checker in there. Then you can choose the type of lettering. We've got a couple in there, but you can predetermine as many as you like. Our gold leaf is set to £3.25 per letter, but for this purpose we're just going to change it on the fly, which you can do. And also you can predetermine the style of lettering, so we'll choose Times Roman for this example. Now we click on the count letters and it's worked out the number of letters for us. If you offer free letters, which some do, you can program those in and it'll remove those letters from the calculation. Or you can exclude certain letters, so if you don't charge for full stops, commas, etc., you can actually put those into the preferences, so those will be ignored as well. You can see it's worked out the net cost of the inscription and the VAT, which will carry through to the job details page. If you want, you can export the inscription, so if you're happy with it and you want it to go to your letter cutting program, you can actually export it, or you could print it for the customer or email it to the customer. We're just printing it here and you can see it nice and clear, and perhaps the customer could take it away and show it to the rest of the family to make sure they're happy with it. Just click on Save the Quote. You can do this as often as you like. in case you get interrupted. We've got a Contacts Note tab, which means you can enter any form of contact you have with the customer. This is great if there's a few of you working in the same place and you'd like to know who said what to who and the next stage that needs to happen. So we're entering a new contact, made today, who made the contact, and then there's different sorts of contact you can enter, being a phone conversation, emails, letters, so on, as you can see there. In our example, we're choosing a phone conversation, then we're going to say who we spoke to and what we said. Now you've got the opportunity to attach any document. So if you've been sent a document, you could scan it, save it to your computer, and you can attach it here, which is great a bit later on if you want to see what they've sent you or what you've discussed. You can actually look at it here and open it. Keeps everything tidily together. If you have told the customer you'll be following them up in a week's time or so, you can actually put in a date and time to do that, so you know to follow it up. You can see now it's on the right hand side, so any staff members can see that and know the position of this quotation. Now just clicking back on the customer tab, this is the one you saw earlier, you can see all the information there and you can amend it if necessary. If you want, click on the Google Maps to see where they are, if you're going out to see them possibly. We had a fictitious address, so it's not actually found one, but it's something in the general area. We also have a Photos tab, which is great for before and after pictures if you're doing renovations. So you can put a heading on the memorial and then choose a photograph which you've already saved to your computer. We're going to choose one there. You can see the photo there. It tells you where the location of the photo is on your computer, and you can write some notes, so you could have before renovation or so on, and you can save it and it will be listed there on the right hand side. If you want to have a good look at that photo, you can just click on the picture and it will open up full size. You can write some notes about the picture as well, and you could print it out. There's space for a heading, so you can have your company heading and logo there, and obviously we would scale the photo to size. And you could email it straight to the customer. Now this is our cemetery tab, and that's telling me all the details about the cemetery that we selected. Now we haven't put a lot of information in on this one, but you can see you can put just about everything you need to know about the cemetery, being the location, which actually we'll just click on the Google Maps to see where it is. And this one is accurate. This one is actually Ballygriffin, which is near Dublin. You've got the location address, the accounts address for paying the money, any general notes. So if there are certain restrictions, things, types of granite, slate or whatever that are not allowed at that cemetery, you can put those in there. And there are also fixing notes. So if there's certain size of headstones, a certain gate you have to come in, you can put anything like that in there. Now the cemeteries, churchyards all fall into cemetery fee groups to make it easier for you to price your fees. Our particular example hasn't got anything in there, but it would be listed with all the fees for that cemetery. Then on the right hand side you can link any cemetery forms. So if the cemetery will allow you to, you can actually scan one of their forms, attach it here and simply click on it and print it out, so you don't have to root around looking for the form. Now the bottom information is about how you pay your fees, so you can choose whether you pay them by cheque, backs, etc. You can hide card details, who you pay the cheques to, and their backs details. I'm going to save. I will clear that quote. Now looking at some of the buttons at the top of the screen, obviously we've seen new quote. There's an edit button, so you could look up a quote and edit it. If you refresh or copy, you could actually copy a quote and change it for a different customer. So it saves all that repetitive typing. You can also move on and delete a quote if it's no longer required. Clear a quote, just move it off the screen to go on to the next one. And these little buttons allow you to scroll through your quotes to see very quickly, have a look through to see what's going on. This particular one, we haven't entered the job details or the inscription, so it's printed there in red for you to see, so you know that you need to come back to that and do that. Now we're back to our quote, and there's our cemetery. If you click the print button, you'll get a little report of all the quotes that are in the system that have not yet been converted to orders. We have a search button, and this is the way to search for the quote at a later date. Now we have a list there of our quotes in the system, but you could search for the quote by number, date, contact deceased, cemetery, company, special reference, description or inscription. So there's lots of ways to find it. We're going to search by deceased. Now in the text field you can type part of the name and it'll search the deceased name to look for those letters that you've typed in. So you can see we found all the Williams because we've typed in IAM. In the same way, if we type son, we've got Stevenson, and it shows us that they're all in Ballygriffin Cemetery, and those are the values of the orders, and we can just click on the one we want. Now one thing we haven't done yet is send any documentation to the customer. So we're choosing a layout of a letter. Now you can predetermine these yourself and have as many as you like. We're just going to choose the Rochdale Inquiry sheet, which is just one sample, and then you choose who you want to address the document to. We have an edit button as well, so you can have a block of text in the letter that you want to edit specifically for that customer, for that job. So in there you would type anything specific so that it personalises it to the job. And then you choose the output, which can be to print, open in Word, view on the screen, create a PDF or email direct to the client. For demonstration purposes, we'll just view it on the screen. And here is our inquiry sheet. Now these can be designed by yourself or with our help, and look however you want them to look. We can build in your own logos, like this one here, which we did for a customer. We've built it in, we can change the colour scheme. You can show figures, you can summarise. It's very, very flexible. And here's the third example. And you can get the customer to sign this one before you confirm it as an order. Now that's our quote done. Now we're going to convert this to an order. It's very simple. You just click on the convert button. In this case, we've already converted this to an order, but we could convert it again by clicking OK, but we're going to click cancel in this case. And now all this information will be carried forward onto the order screen.